Yep.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm super excited for our guest today. Today we have Pattie Ruwwe, who is a mother of seven, and three of her children are special needs, of whom she homeschools. So, for those of you who are like, I can't homeschool because my kids are special needs and they need IEPs at the school and da 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 da, I'm here to tell you it is possible. And Patty's going to share her story today. And it's probably better for kids with special needs when you're their not only their parent but their teacher. So, Patty, thank you so much for coming on today.
Of course. I'm glad I could be here.
So let's start with your story. Talk about your kids, their ages.
Okay.
Let's hear your story a little bit.
Okay, so we actually are a blended family. We have seven kids that range anywhere from 28 years old to 12, almost 12-year-old twins. And we actually started our homeschooling journey back in 2014 when a high school that my kiddos were attending decided that they were going to switch everything over to a standards based grading system without really having a rollout protocol. And
Mhm.
my honor roll student went from straight A's to having F's and D's, and we really had no idea what was going on. So we participated in a bunch of basically town hall meetings with regards to why this is happening. What are you going to do to fix our kiddos' grades? Because our kids are doing everything that they were doing, and now all of a sudden they're just not cutting it. And
Wait,
so
and
when
pause for a second. What can you explain what standards based grading is for those who are unfamiliar with it?
So from what I can understand and make out of the mud, basically, was you go from the grading system that we currently use here in our home, which basically
Mhm.
is you test out and okay, these are your test scores. You hand in so many assignments and you get so many credits for however many assignments you're given for the year, etc. Standards based grading bases things off of cumulative projects. So let's say you do you do a test and you don't do so well on the test the first time around. They give you an opportunity to take the test again, but the way that we understood it is they were basically baiting, I should say, grading the test a little bit different the second time around. Same
Mhm.
with our kiddos turning in like homework assignments and so on and so forth. If I don't even remember exactly how it was laid out for us, but basically it was kind of like a point system. And
Mhm.
if you attempted to redo the actual project, your grade went down as you were basically redoing projects. And so
Wow.
our one daughter, who was an honor roll student and never had any issues in school, and all of a sudden she was like, Mom, I got a D on this and I don't understand because they graded it different. And I was like, okay, so explain to me. Well, she couldn't even explain it. And I think that that was where the communication broke. And that was kind of where a lot of us parents were standing in the school library, basically trying to understand how we could explain this to our children if we don't even understand it. And if the teachers don't even understand it, how can the teachers explain it to our children so that our children can be successful? So
Mhm.
when they decided they basically had to have this program out and rolling, they had had 5 years to implement this. They waited till the very last year and they basically just threw the teachers in. I'm sorry, this is the way it's going to be. You're going to have to learn it on the fly, which is literally how it played out. And so it was at that time in 2014 that we decided to pull our kiddos. Now,
Mhm.
our one special needs kiddo, Bryn, she was not school age yet. So we hadn't
Mhm.
really processed the concept of, well, what do we do now? So let's just homeschool the older kiddos. When Bryn reaches the age where we need to think about school, we'll figure it out from there. And so I will be
Mhm.
honest, we did go to what would have been Bryn's potential kindergarten class. We met a
Mhm.
lovely teacher. We thought she was wonderful. However, this teacher was actually pretty blatantly honest with us and said, I don't know that we have a place for your kiddo here in my classroom.
Hmm.
And I think that that was kind of when Jim and I decided, wow, this is just a real eye opener. So what are you going to do with Brindle during the day? And so they asked us at the time, well, does she have a wheelchair? No, she didn't have a wheelchair yet. She's very petite. And so we were still using a regular commercial available stroller. And so she's like, well, she
Mhm.
really needs a wheelchair so that she can participate. Well, she doesn't have a wheelchair. And so it was at that time that we started really thinking about, okay, how are we going to get her into a school-like setting if I can't even get her the proper equipment so that she can learn with the rest of the kiddos, with her peers?
Mhm.
And so after we talked to this teacher, she was, like I said, she just was a godsend. And I truly
Mhm.
believe that we were meant to meet her because I think that she like painted a very vivid picture for us of what our daughter's life was going to look like if she attended school. So Dad and I decided at that time that we basically were just going to go ahead and try homeschooling. And so
Mhm.
we had already been homeschooling our other kiddos. So we thought, okay, well, let's just incorporate her into our other kiddos' schedules, which we knew was going to be a juggle because here we've
Mhm.
got a kindergartner that has not a lot of cognitive ability. And then we have teenagers who are, high schoolers and so on and so forth. So then we had our twins. They were actually born in 2013. And so we started preschooling them because we were already homeschooling Brindle. So we decided to put them into what we considered a preschool setting.
Mhm.
And we kind of just, the flow just started happening for us. But as the twins started getting older, we started noticing that the twins were having more and more issues with learning. And we
Mhm.
actually knew with our one son, the 11-year-old boy, his name is Jackson. We noticed right away, right around 9 months, that Jackson was having some issues. He was having some coordination issues. And so we kind of knew that we were probably facing a challenge. Now, let me backtrack real quick. Both of our kiddos, the twins, were extreme preemies. And so
Okay.
they were 3 pounds when they were born. And so obviously there's a higher risk of issues with, developmental issues and so on and so forth as those preemies continue to develop. So we kind of had a feeling something was going on with Jackson, but we had not seen it yet with the twin Jera. And so we were like, okay, well, we'll just kind of take a different track with Jackson and see what we need to do to accommodate him. So by the time he got to kindergarten age, and by the time Jera got to kindergarten age, Jackson was on a very different level. And
Mhm.
Jera seemed like she was going to be a very neurotypical kid. And so we were like, okay, so now I'm going to learn how to teach homeschool basically from a kindergartner all the way up to a senior, which is like, wow, that's a
Yeah, that's a
challenge.
lot.
Haven't been there before. So we started our one kiddo, we started out in 8th grade, and then we
Okay.
started a ninth and a 10th grader. Basically, that was where everybody was at in 2014.
Mhm.
So I was teaching homeschool from middle school up, but starting all over, starting with kindergarten and so on and so forth, it was like a whole new world. So,
Yeah.
um, both of the kiddos, both Bryn and Jackson, had to go through like IQ testing. We had one,
Mhm.
Bryn was able to do it through D49. And it was at that time that we basically found out that Bryn was equivalent, it was a 5-year-old body basically, and she was like an 18-month-old kiddo. And so
Gotcha.
we knew we were going to have to really take some steps back and figure out how we were going to accommodate her. And then we did the IQ testing with Jackson as he got older. They're both in waiver programs here with the state of
Mhm.
Colorado, and they have to take these IQ tests basically in order to determine their developmental delays and where they're at.
Mhm.
So what kind of assistance, if we put them in school, what kind of assistance they would get in school, and so on and so forth. So as the kiddos did get older, I will be honest, we thought about putting them in school because we really wanted them to have that experience. But
Mhm.
unfortunately, our kiddos have become really immunocompromised. And so
Mhm.
homeschooling just kind of seemed to fit for us. So as much as we wanted to put them in public school, we knew it just wasn't going to be in their best interests. So
Yeah.
that's where the challenge hit. And so then it was more of a, okay, how can I accommodate a neurotypical kiddo, a kiddo who was diagnosed with low functioning autism, and then a
Mhm.
kid who is basically, I would say, profoundly disabled. And
Okay.
when I say profoundly, she does not walk, she does not talk, she does not eat by mouth. She is G tube dependent.
Mhm.
So she has no communication. And when Bryn was really young, we were definitely seeing some small inch stones, basically, is what we called them, because Bryn had learned how to do sign language. So we thought, okay, this is it.
Ah,
We're going to teach this kid how to do sign language. So that was going to be how we were going to get through curriculum. Yay, we've got this figured out. So we started working with a therapist who was also very versed in sign language. So she was working with me and working with Bryn. And then Bryn learned how to commando crawl. And unfortunately, with Bryn's particular disease,
mhm.
when they learn something that takes up their brain, they tend to lose another ability. And
Ah,
so Bryn
interesting.
learned how to commando crawl and lost sign language. And so
Gotcha.
we tried so hard to get her to sign again for us. And it was almost like night and day. I mean, truly like
Mhm.
night and day for her. We were able to get her to sign so many things, and then all of a sudden it was like, wow, I can watch her crawl across the floor, but I can't get her to sign anything for me anymore. So
Mhm.
again, another challenge. And so basically, I think that was when I really had to kick it into gear and to get creative, because
Yeah.
I felt like, okay, I have three vastly different kiddos that need
Mhm.
very different amounts of attention, and they need different learning abilities, or they're at different learning abilities. And how am I going to accommodate these kiddos, when I'm
Yeah.
still trying to get a senior out of high school? And so basically that was kind of where we were at. We were on our last senior, and we were graduating her and starting the twins in kindergarten. And it was just kind of a nightmare.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we kind of kicked it into gear and got creative. And so basically where we have landed is, so that everybody understands a little bit more about Bryn. Bryn uses an assistive technology. She uses an AAC device, which is basically,
Mhm.
we have discovered that she does very well with eye gaze. And so we use
Interesting.
an eye gaze system for her. Even though she was diagnosed with a CVI, which is cortical vision impairment, we have been able to accommodate her on basically what looks like a giant iPad, that reads her eyes, and she is able to play games, and she's able to match puzzle pieces. And so what we have done is we've taken like 3D puzzles, and we have taken pictures of the
Mm.
pieces of the 3D puzzles, and we've laid them on like a black background so that she can see these pieces beautifully. And then
Mhm.
we have uploaded them into the AAC device. And so now she can play a matching game with the being able to touch the puzzle pieces and being able to match them what's on the screen. So she looks at
Wow.
the screen, she sees a little duck, and so then we go from the duck on the screen to the duck on the table that's sitting in front of her. And she's been able to pick up the duck that correlates to the duck picture that's on her AAC device. So we use the AAC device primarily for Bryn for schooling, which is amazing.
Mhm.
And we also, one of the things that kind of goes along with the whole unschooling concept, which I truly have taken into play with two of my kiddos, especially,
Mhm.
with regards to Bryn, we use her PT, her OT, and her speech therapies as part of her schooling curriculum, because
Mhm.
they come out and they're working with our kiddos and they're teaching our kiddos, different exercises and so on and so forth. Well, why can't this be incorporated into schooling? So
Yeah.
absolutely, because PT is physical education to me. And,
Mhm.
doing speech, that's doing her curriculum, and doing OT, it's fine motor skills and gross motor skills. And so I'm all over it. So we use all of our therapies as part of our schooling hours. And so that would be Bryn's curriculum. That's how we basically adapted to Bryn. Now, with regards to Jackson, that's a whole different beast.
Mhm.
Jackson could not read. He could not talk. He is also a G-tube kid, so he does take some food in by mouth, but he doesn't use any utensils. So he
Mhm.
can't hold a pencil. He can't hold a spoon or a fork. He has learned how to use a straw, which is
Mhm.
a huge step in the right direction for him. Which
Which
is all
and
about, yeah.
how old is he now? How old is he now?
He's 11. He'll be 12 in
Okay.
March. Yep. So
Gotcha.
he recently, in the last probably year and a half, he has been using his tablet more and more. He also has an assistive device, but his is more like an actual tablet. And his speech
Mhm.
therapist found this program that works really well for him. And it basically allows him to take things that he is super, super interested in and build off of these things. So, for
Wow.
example, Jackson loves calendar dates. So he knows national days and he knows holidays and so on and so forth. So what she does is she takes this information that he's obsessive about and
Mhm.
he puts it into his tablet and he is able to do basically research on why is it National Hot Dog Day? And so
Mhm.
we have now learned a lot about all of the thousands of national days there are, but he loves it and it keeps him totally engrossed in what he's doing. So, in the process of doing all of this, he has taught himself how to type. He has taught
Wow.
himself how to read. And I think one of the biggest things for me over the years as a parent has been the stigma of tablet time. And I
Mhm.
absolutely have been ridiculed over the years about how much tablet time my son has had. And when you have a low functioning autistic kiddo who basically cannot communicate, he can't self
Mhm.
regulate, he can't do anything, but you want me to take away the one thing that
That
allows
he can
him,
do.
yeah, that he can do, that he can function on. You want me to take that away from him. And so that has been a huge stigma over probably the last decade. Everybody's like, too much tablet time, which I understand. For some kids, it's super stimulating. But for my
Yeah.
son, in this particular case, it has been a godsend. I mean, it
Yeah.
truly has been a lifesaver for him. And so his tablet has become his best friend. And I can't tell you how quickly that boy can look something up now, can do research on something and give me feedback. And so
Mhm.
in the
Which
process of this, yeah.
I was going to say, how does he give you feedback? Because he's nonverbal, correct?
Mhm. So he has started to speak. He does not have a lot of clear words, but his
Hmm.
big thing is showing you. So let me show
Hmm.
you what I
Gotcha.
found. So I can literally say, "So Jackson, what do you know about Iceman?" Whatever, and he literally types in Iceman, and then if he can't say it clearly enough to me, he'll turn it around so that I can read it. And so
Wow.
this has
Love
been
that.
his way of basically providing, this is his growth, this is how he's growing, this is how he's communicating with us. So with him we do a lot of mixed curriculum,
Hmm.
which I love and has been super beneficial because we have been able to, I would say, kind of dumb some things down a little bit so that it's not such a struggle, because even getting him to sit in a seat is a struggle.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
when you've got him on a really great day and he's willing to sit, the last thing you want to do is to stress him out and make it so that he doesn't want to sit there anymore. So what do?
Yeah.
You try and find as many things as you can find that Jackson would be interested in so that I can keep him totally stimulated while he's sitting in that seat. So we do a lot of like dot work. So a lot of the dot markers, we do a ton of dot work because it's a lot of coordination, because it's something that he still doesn't have. He doesn't have a lot of fine motor. So we do a lot of dot work. And so he has learned a lot about letters and numbers just from doing dot work. And then we also do reading, one of the biggest things for Jackson, all of my kids have always been big into books. And so
Mhm.
we read every single day. And so we have a class book that we read
Awesome.
together every single day. And then we
Mhm.
have at nighttime, every kiddo gets read to. And so that I believe has been a huge play on our kiddos,
Mhm.
interest in books and interest in just about anything. Jackson's library is huge. And
Wow.
it's full of a lot of rhyming books. I'll be honest. I have found
Mhm.
just about every rhyming book that exists in this world, but it's what keeps him interested, and so
Yeah.
we challenge him here in the classroom by actually reading chapter books or reading board books that aren't rhyming, which are harder for
Mhm.
him to listen to. But at least I'm challenging him, and at least I'm making him stay connected in the classroom, which is huge. That's super important when, like I said, when we are engaging him and we've got him in that seat, take advantage of as much time as you can, because getting him in that seat's hard. Um,
Yeah.
so that's kind of been the way that we have worked around Jackson's disabilities and trying to accommodate him as much as possible. So moving
Does
on,
he
go
now?
ahead.
I was going to say, does he listen to audiobooks as well,
He
or do you
does
solely
on
read
his
to him? Mhm.
tablet. Yep, on his tablet, he does have some audiobooks also. He's a big proponent on YouTube. I will be honest.
Mhm.
One of the really cool things is he's actually gotten into a bunch of books on YouTube and then has requested those books. So we've been able to
Wow.
buy those books based on the fact that he's listening to them all the time. And so we're like, well,
Mhm.
if he's listening to it, why can't we read it? So let's read
Right.
it to
Right.
him. And so he has gotten to the point where he now can read some of the pages in his books, which we do make him try. Every night,
Mhm.
there are certain books that we know he's a little more comfortable with than others. So we do make him try and read books. He read a book to us about a month ago, and he read it almost completely by himself, with the
Wow.
exception of about 2 to 3 words. So,
Mhm.
and they're not your typical sight words. They're not words that I would have said, oh, those are on his sight chart. So why wouldn't he know that? Why wouldn't he know that word? But all the basic words are in there, and the basic
Mhm.
sight words are in there. So I think tickle got him. Excuse me. And I can't remember the other one, but I'm pretty sure it was tickle and something else. But they're just a little bit longer word, and sounding things out is still a little bit rough for him. So
Yeah.
yeah. So then, with regards to Jera, I would explain Jera as she presents as a pretty neurotypical kiddo, which is super
Mhm.
cool. But Jera has a lot of issues. She has dyslexia, which is a huge struggle for us. She has anxiety, and she has ADHD, and she has high functioning
Mhm.
autism. So again, working around all of these challenges has been interesting, but I will say with Jera, mixed curriculum has definitely been the easiest choice for us.
Mhm.
She loves to do new things. So we have exposed her to things like a cash register and working a
Mhm.
typewriter. And she's a great reader. She reads at ninth grade level, and she's only in
Wow.
sixth grade. So she's an amazing reader for somebody who has dyslexia. And so,
Mhm.
but we have done a ton of accommodations for her. So a lot of her
Yeah.
work is done on green paper, because they say that green paper is easier for her to see things. We use a
Interesting.
giant, yeah, we use a giant green chalkboard. We had a whiteboard for so many years that we used for all the kids. And all Jared would do was complain about how she couldn't see anything that was on the board. And I was like, how
Interesting.
can you not see it? This board is like 4 feet wide. It's huge. And so we never really understood why she couldn't see it. And I'm like, well, so then we started changing up our schoolroom so that she basically, she could see the board better. And that didn't work. And so we
Hmm.
were like, what are we going to do now? And so that's when I started doing the research about the green background, the green blackboards, etc. So we
Interesting.
invested in a giant green chalkboard, and she sees everything now. and she has no issues with
Wow.
reading what's on the board and so on and so forth. And they make a ton of products for kiddos with dyslexia. And there's actually a dyslexia program that I'm currently working on right now, trying to help her with like letter formation and number formation, because that's her big downfall. Her handwriting is just really, really poor. And she can read it, but nobody else can. And it makes it really
Yeah.
hard when we're grading products, projects and stuff. I can't read it. And so
Hmm.
there's a pretty amazing program which I'd like to share, but I want to finish the program before I actually
Gotcha.
put touch on it. But anyways, but one of the big things
Well,
is if you've got a kiddo with dyslexia, yeah,
I was going to say,
did you
let me know if it works out. Let me know,
will?
and then I can share.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Anyway, keep going.
absolutely,
But
absolutely. Yeah. So,
continue on
but what I
with
absolutely
dyslexia.
would, yeah. So what I would absolutely say is if you've got kiddos with dyslexia, do the research. It definitely is a huge help. I didn't realize just how big this world is. And,
Hmm.
just how hard it is for a kiddo to try and learn how to read and form numbers and letters when to us it's no big deal, and I'm writing things all over the board every single day. And she's like, I don't know how you do that, or what is that number, or whatever. And it's like, gosh, I just, I wish I could make this easier for you. And so that was where I decided, okay, it's my job. It's my job to make things
Hmm.
easier for you. And so now I'm going to do the research. I'm going to find out how I can make things easier for you. And green paper was a huge one. And,
Wow.
we do like all of our copies, any kind of paperwork that we do that's copies, we do everything on green paper. So I literally have green copy paper instead of white copy paper. And so I use, one of the websites that I use a ton is Teachers Pay Teachers. And I love that website. And I download a ton of projects, and there's reading logs that are just so geared towards, kiddos like her, and book reports and all this kind of stuff. And so Teachers Pay Teachers has been a huge one for me.
Hmm.
But again, every time I print something off, I have to print it off on green paper, because otherwise it's extremely hard for her to read. Um, so yeah, so I would say for her, it's been a lot of mixed curriculum.
Like, and so for example, what are some of the things that you do with her?
Yeah. So, well, before every year actually starts, so we do run a traditional school year here. I know a lot of
Hmm.
parents don't want to run that, or they basically are coming in, mid-year, and they're not exactly sure how to do it. But we actually do follow a traditional school year. We start school in August and we end end of May, basically. And what I do during the summertime is I get on eBay and I look for curriculum that is like sixth grade based. And
Hmm.
I also use Teachers Pay Teachers for a lot of the curriculum. So there's kind of like, for me, that's like a lot of fill in. The Teachers Pay Teachers is a lot of fill in stuff for us.
Hmm.
So, like, one of the programs that we have right now is called Marker Mania, and it's geared towards teaching kids how to address adverbs, nouns, and all that kind of stuff, like at a fast pace. So it's kind of like a math drill. You can do math drills every single morning, and that helps kids to understand numbers and to be able to look at a an addition, gosh, I'm like totally lost my train of thought here. But anyways, they have these marker manias, which basically it's just a whole worksheet of nothing but verbs, and a whole worksheet of nothing but adverbs, and so on and so forth. So that's what we call our fill-in work. And so we use that for
Hmm.
like morning work, or like if I'm working with one of the other kiddos and I need an extra few minutes, she has access to these worksheets so that she can pull these worksheets out and just work on worksheets until I'm ready to move on to the next subject or whatever. But getting back to like textbooks, we actually purchase textbooks off of eBay, and that's kind of been our lifesaver. Truly, we use a lot of Houghton Mifflin books. I've been able to get both teacher editions and kiddo books and their workbooks. And I spend less than probably $50 on each subject for all three books.
Wow.
So yeah, so I mean, eBay is definitely the place to go. That is definitely a pro tip that I would pass on, is just search eBay. There's a website that sells on eBay. It's called Thrift Books, I believe, is the name of the company. Um,
I love
and
thrift books.
yeah, and Thrift Books seems to have some pretty good quality books. I mean, I get the majority of my hardback books directly from Thrift Books, because they've got some pretty good. I would say they're in very good condition. So minimal markings. I don't have to worry about kiddos having written answers in workbooks, etc. The workbooks are all clean. So those are definitely some, some places that I would say that those are great places to get mixed curriculums.
How long do you spend a day doing schooling with the kids?
We average about 4 hours a day. And that's for
Mhm.
all three kiddos, though. So I would say Jera, being my most neurotypical kiddo, I would say she probably spends close to 3 hours a day doing all schoolwork. And that
Mhm.
includes her reading, because she has to read independently on her own every day. So I would say she probably is somewhere around 3 hours a day. And then the total curriculum time for everybody is about sometimes 4.5 hours. That's just whether or not we've got full cooperation and we're not having any
Sure.
technical issues or whatever. So, but yeah, I mean, we average probably about 4 hours. On a good day, we're done in three. So
And then the rest of the day, what do the kids do?
so Jera is really into beading, and she
Mhm.
is, I would say, totally obsessed with Taylor Swift. And so she spends a lot of time teaching herself how to play guitar, which is pretty impressive for a kiddo with dyslexia. She's
Very
not
impressive.
musically inclined. Yeah, she is not musically inclined, but she is doing a pretty good job. She's found an
That's
app
awesome.
that she uses on her cell phone, and that app teaches notes, it teaches tones, it teaches you how to tune your guitar. It kind of does a little bit of everything. So she is determined to be the next Taylor Swift. And
I
so
love
she has
it.
started to write songs. So she writes songs. And then, like I said, she does a lot of beading. All ties together with Taylor Swift and her little friendship bracelets. So she
Mhm.
does a ton of eating and so on and so forth. With Jackson, Jackson spends most of his day by himself. He's not a
Mhm.
big player. He doesn't like to be interacting. And so school time is his big social interaction time.
Yeah.
Um, and so he's kind of kept to himself. We try and
Mhm.
engage him in more books, and we engage him in puzzles and stuff like that. But for the most part, he's kind of on his own. With
Yeah.
Bryn, she's got so many cares that we do during the period of a day. The rest of her day is totally booked. She does a lot of breathing treatments, and she's doing exercises and position changes and stuff like that. Her dynamic is it's very different than the other two kiddos.
Yeah.
Having a kiddo that doesn't walk, and needs full assist, her life looks very different than, the other kids. And so
Yeah.
she's Brindle, and and like I said, she's a whole day's worth of cares. So, but her morning is busy, and we try and keep her occupied. And Bryn loves to go places. She doesn't actually like to go into places, but she loves to go in the car. And so
Mhm.
that's kind of like her, hey, mom said we're going bye-bye, so let's go.
Yeah. So we're going. We're going.
We're
I
going
love
and
it.
I'm ready.
So with your older kids, because you pulled them
Yep.
in high school, some of them,
Yep. Yeah.
what
Middle school
did
and high
their
school. Yep.
homeschool middle school and high school that was similar to me. I pulled my kids;
Yeah.
they were in middle school going into high school,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I had two that graduated from high school and then than my next two. And then
Yeah.
I had one about to enter elementary and the one that was in elementary. And so I understand when you're like, whoa, the dynamics are totally different.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. I was like,
Yeah.
whew.
Huge.
What would
Yeah.
you do for the high schoolers and the middle schoolers? What would their days look like?
Um, so they obviously, so it was a lot of learning on the fly with them because I basically just kind of got thrown into it. So when
Mm-hmm.
we first started, I'll be honest, my first stop was Mardell's, and I was like, okay, what can I get, for these kids so that they can learn, and so
Yeah.
that I can figure out what I'm doing without allowing them to lose track, and
Sure.
lose their functions. And so, Mardell was
And
my
I
first
have
stop.
to say, for those that are not familiar, Mardell's is a Christian bookstore that carries a lot of homeschooling curriculum. I don't know if it's in
Ton.
every state in the United States. It is in the state of Colorado, which is where we are. So anyway, continue on.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't even think about that part. But yes, so I basically, my first stop was Mardell's, and I
Mhm.
found as much equivalent, grade equivalent stuff that I could find for each one of the kiddos. And then with them, it was a lot of research based, curriculum. We were doing a ton of reports. I pulled them out
Mhm.
actually in October. So it was right before, they were going to go on fall break. And so they'd already been in school since August. So they basically were in public school from August to October. And then we hit Christmas break. And I'll be honest, Christmas break is when I really started like just doing as much research as I could to figure out
Mhm.
how I was going to, one, keep these kids busy, and two, keep
Yeah.
them motivated, and three, challenge them, because I'm just a mom. When this all started, I was
Yeah.
just a mom and I wasn't a teacher. I always thought I'd be a teacher as a kid, but it's just not how it played out. Um, but I thought, wow, I've got three kids that I've got to keep entertained. And so I'll be honest, we did all kinds of stuff. We went to the zoo and we went to the aquarium. And every time we did that, it was a report based trip. And so
Mhm.
like we went to the Denver Zoo. That was, I think, the first place we went. And I said, okay, so we're here at the zoo and this is going to be really fun. It's going to be your field trip for the year. But guess what? You're going to pick out an animal and you're going to do a full report on this animal and their habitats and their eating habits and how they survive in the wild and what would they do in containment and how would they survive in containment and so on and so forth. So everything we did basically had some kind of curriculum, background to it. So we did the exact same thing with the aquarium. We took them all to the aquarium and I said, okay, pick out your sea creature because you're doing a report. And they're like, ugh, can't we just go to the aquarium, And I'm like, no, you got to learn. So they did reports. And so, but with those kids, it's kind of like, we took a huge approach to unschooling with them, and we did
Mhm.
the mixed curriculum for sure, and then we did a lot of unschooling. So my kiddos at that point really learned how to grocery shop, and they learned
Mhm.
how to create meals on a budget. One of the things that we did one night was we told them that they were making dinner and they only had this much money to spend, and they had to come up with a dinner and a dessert with this much money, and collectively they all had to make it. And so they actually came up with a baked potato bar. We thought it was pretty
I love it.
ingenious. I know, it was pretty cool. So they bought all the toppings and everything with the money that they had been allotted. And they had I don't even remember, to be honest, I don't remember what the dessert was, but the potato bar really stood out to us. And we thought, wow, this is pretty cool. Not only did you created this potato bar, but you also, bought all of the toppings and everything and made it all work. And it was well within your budget. And if I remember correctly, they had money left over and they're like, so do we get to split the balance? Because they thought for sure they were owed it. So I'm gonna I'm
That's
gonna get my
hilarious.
husband to get me a charger real quick. Sorry, this computer is
Oh,
gonna
no
die.
worries.
So anyways, so we did the baked potato bar. That was one of their experiments, and it was really kind of cool because I took them to the grocery store and I told them, this is, you're all on your own and here's your money and you've got to pay for it. So I basically was the cart pusher that day, which I thought was pretty cool. But the kids definitely learned how, to grocery shop. And with my older kiddos, one of the first things that I taught them that I thought was super, super important, especially since our older boy was working at the time, he was working for King Soopers. And I wanted him to learn how to do his taxes. And so we
Mhm.
made sure that each one of the kiddos, there was a program, I believe it was also on Teacher Pay Teachers. There was a program that was basically about budgeting, writing checks, balancing your checkbook, filing taxes, and so on and so forth. And so the two older kiddos went through that program. And man, I have to say that was the best thing I could have done for them, because
Wow.
to this day, those kiddos can still do taxes, and, they know exactly how to balance a checkbook if they needed to balance a checkbook. I realize nobody uses a checkbook anymore, but they, know how to balance a checkbook. And, so they understood the difference between a credit card and a debit card and so on and so forth. Sorry, he's rescuing me with a charger.
Oh, no
Um,
worries. And you don't remember hello. Hey, Jim. Um, you don't remember the name of the curriculum? Because that sounds super cool.
I
Because I
don't,
think that's,
it was. Okay, I'm back on. We're good.
well, because I think that's something I know that there's a lot of public schools that are trying to implement more financial literacy and things like that. And there's still a huge disparity because, that's only some schools.
Yeah.
But yet that's a skill we have to have. And cooking is a skill we have to have. But
Yeah.
those get neglected all the time. So I love
Yeah,
that you were
absolutely.
trying to incorporate these things because these are life skills that we need. So I'd be curious at
Yep.
what the filing taxes curriculum is,
Yeah.
because that's something
Yeah.
my 17-year-old brought up. He's
I
like,
will look it up
okay,
for you.
yeah, I love it. And I'll put all everything that she refers to, y'all. I'm going to try to include in the show notes where possible. So those of y'all interested, check the show notes uh, with whatever platform you're on, so we can include that.
Yeah.
So then, graduation for your oldest.
Hmm.
What did that look like for you? I guess it was your oldest too.
Um, yeah, yeah. So, graduation. So I do want to put this in there because, my older boy, he decided after about a year and a half of homeschool that he was done. And that he wanted to go back to
Mhm.
public school for his senior
Okay.
year. He stuck it
Okay.
through his junior year, but he decided for his senior year, he wanted to be back in school. So I respected it. I
Mhm.
didn't have any problem with it, and we allowed him to go back into the school system, which it actually worked out fine. I mean, he did really well. He wasn't behind. He was actually ahead in a few things. And so
Mhm.
his senior year it played out, I think, exactly how he wanted it to, because he really
Yeah.
wanted
Yeah.
all of the festivities and so on and so forth. So
Yeah.
I was okay with that. So, but my two older girls, they were like, nope, I don't have any desire.
Not going
I
back.
absolutely, yeah, I'm not going back. I don't need it. I feel like I'm getting everything I need here. I'm comfortable. Everything's great. So my first daughter, we actually, we decided, because she, again, my honor roll student, she was the kid that I was absolutely going to send to college, and I was not going to waste anything on this kiddo. So we actually did concurrent enrollment with her. And
Mhm.
so concurrent enrollment, for some people who don't understand what that is, basically the kiddo is still going through homeschooling or through school and is also attending college at the same time. And so Hunter did the placement test. She did really well. And so she decided to start knocking out some of her college courses while she was still in high school. And she was still working at Target at the time. I don't know how she
Mhm.
did it all,
But she
but
did
she
it.
did. More power to her. And so her graduation was actually my first. And so I wanted to make it special. So her senior
Mhm.
year, we actually did senior pictures, just like I would do for, any of the kiddos. So we did senior pictures. She had a song, a senior song. So Humble and Kind was actually her senior song by Tim McGraw. And so she had a senior song, and we basically centered that whole year around her and what would have been the things that she missed, obviously, things like prom and so on and so forth, which back then I didn't really know about a lot of the co-ops and stuff like that do things like senior proms for kiddos. So we weren't a part of that. So we did as much as we could for her. We still had a senior breakfast. We actually had a graduation ceremony. I actually ordered her a diploma. You can order diplomas online. They will include your homeschool name. There's a place for you to sign, and so on and so forth. So she has a fancy high school diploma, just like anybody else would. We bought her a cap and gown, so she didn't miss out on the pomp and circumstance. Like I said, we had a graduation ceremony. I had a whole speech written up. We did pictures, and then we took her to a graduation dinner. So that was what our
Oh, that's
senior
awesome.
graduations look like. We felt like, you worked so hard, we don't want you to miss out on everything, because I remember what my senior year was like. We did everything. And so we tried to accommodate her as much as possible. And then when we graduated Lacey, we did the exact same thing. We did the same thing, senior breakfast, did a graduation ceremony, bought her a cap and gown, got her diploma ordered, and so on and so forth. Cute. It was very cute, actually. At that particular time, Jara and Jackson were starting kindergarten that year, or the following year. And so what we did is we took a picture of Lacey on our street with a sign that says, "I'm done." And then Jara was actually holding a sign that says, "Just getting started." And it was very cute. And
That's
so,
awesome.
we try and make a big deal out of it, because I know that homeschool kiddos, they aren't involved in all the things that public school provides. And
Yeah.
so, we've always tried to do even just the littlest things. My kids still remember them, especially my girls. During the fall time, this was, I think, our second year of homeschooling. We decided we were going to make I think it was apple cinnamon cookies, and then we made apple cider to go with it. And because it was fall time, and I felt like, they miss out on everything at school. So let's do something fun, and let's do something
Mhm.
themed, and so on and so forth. And I mean, they're, 16, years old. So are they really going to be that interested in it? Well, yeah, they were. They thought it
Yeah,
was the
they
coolest
yeah,
thing.
they sure are.
They do. Yeah. They thought it was the coolest thing ever. And to this day, they still remember that apple cider and those cookies. And so we did, we did a lot of like movies. We One of their favorite books still to this day is Fahrenheit 451. And
Interesting.
we did, yeah, it's a fantastic book. And it was such an amazing program that we ran around it. I'm not even sure where I got this curriculum. I know it was not Teachers Pay Teachers, but it was basically a whole like project centered around Fahrenheit 451. And so we would like read the book, and then we'd be engaged in these amazing conversations. And it's like, I know I won't get that, with my special needs kiddos, but I had that, and so it was something that sticks in the kids' minds. And Lacey still to this day still has her book, because she loves that book. She's like, I'm never going to get rid of that book, because it's
I
such a
love it.
powerful book. And so we had a lot of these really cool programs that we did based on, just books. And Jara just recently went through, oh, I'm trying to think of the name of the book. I knew I was going to forget what it was about. But anyways, we just did a whole program on this one book, When Calls Dixie. Sorry, I just, for some
Mhm.
reason, I couldn't figure it out. But When Calls Dixie, and that book was an amazing impact on her, and she loved every
Oh,
bit of it. And we watched the movie together, and we did a book report on it, and we did a whole program that I was able to pull offline. Now, that one I know was on Teacher Pay Teachers. And it was like a bunch of questions, about what did you read in chapter one, and so on and so forth. And it gives you all these questions. And those are the kinds of things that my kids remember, and
mhm.
so those are the things I'm going to stick to, those are the
Yeah.
curriculum pieces I'm sticking to. And I'll be honest, all of the books from the kids' high school years, I have literally kept every single one of those books. They're all in our garage, and they're sitting around waiting for Jara to get to. And some of them we actually get to start in 2 years. So I'm excited about it. I get to pull out the Spanish curriculum, and, all this kind of stuff. And so it's kind of, full circle. It's come back around, and it's kind of like, wow, I started you at kindergarten and now here we are, going into seventh grade soon, and so on and so forth. So it is doable. It truly
Yeah.
is a doable thing. And despite, your kiddos obstacles, you just have to learn to work around them. And it takes time and it takes energy. But to me, I don't know that I ever once felt scared. I think it was
Hmm.
more, it was like this giant opportunity for me to provide something for my kids. And I wanted to do it. And I never regretted it, not even once. And even though there were some days that were huge struggles, like with my older boy, Kylan, he didn't want to do the curriculum. He wanted to go to work instead. And because he was working during some of the school hours, because we allowed it, because he's homeschooled, he could do his school after work or whatever. And so he's like, nope, I don't want to do my work. I'm just going to go to school. I mean, I'm just going to go to work. I don't want to do schoolwork, etc. So there were challenges, I mean, definitely there were challenges that were presented to us. And I say the biggest challenges were probably trying to deal with three special needs kids who have very
Hmm.
different learning abilities, and trying to find, their little niches. And to be honest with you, that took a long time, to figure it out.
Hmm.
It's not like, you're just going to wake up the next day and go, okay, I got this. I know exactly where I'm going to start. There's always a starting point, but there's a huge world out there of resources. And I think with our kiddos, especially my three, I would never want to send them to public school. And I think
Yeah.
my main reason is because I can provide so much more than they're going to get in a sped class. And I don't want my daughter sitting in a class, and doing nothing. I want my
Hmm.
daughter experiencing things, and I want her to be working on things that are geared towards her, and her abilities. And Jera, I always worried that she would get left behind, and I didn't want that for her. So and there were several years where, we had to kind of change up the curriculum because, hey, guess what? This just isn't working, and
Hmm.
I have that ability, public school
Yeah.
doesn't have that ability. I do. And that, made for some really amazing, you know, learning experiences for both her and I. It's like, Mom, God, I can't do this, and okay, what
Hmm.
can't you do? What do I need to understand so that I understand what you can't do? And then, okay, let's redirect. And so Mom got on the internet and started doing more research. So,
Well, and I think you bring up an interesting point. I was recently on Facebook and somebody posted that one of their children is special needs, and it was suggested by the pediatrician that they go ahead and put them in school because they're behind with reading and whatnot. So school will help. And as a former teacher, who had 150 students a day in middle school, and then seeing my kids' former, public school teachers who had 32 kids in their classes, um, they can't accommodate every child, even though they're expected to, because there's one of them and there's a teacher shortage already, and there's a resource teacher shortage, and there's a special education teacher shortage, like all of the teacher shortages. And these
mhm.
poor teachers are doing the best that they can, being one person, but they cannot accommodate all of their kids the way that they need to because they're only one person spread as
Mhm.
thin as possible. Whereas we as parents can absolutely accommodate those kids. And so I responded, I'm like, your child is going to be better off at home where you can make all the accommodations for them that they need, because you, number one, you love them more, and number two, you have, the ratio is smaller. I mean, just the sheer
Mhm.
ratio is smaller. And
Yeah.
so, but I think you bring up such a valuable point that you've been able to go in and do the research. And yes, is a lot of work. It is. But when we signed up to be moms, we knew that they'd come with a lot of work. You know what I mean? Like, we knew kids, they come with their own personalities and needs. And that's part of motherhood. And now it's just, as a homeschooler, it's just an extension of motherhood. But I love that what you've done is gone, okay, this isn't working. I've got to research. I've got to find it. And you were absolutely capable to find out that green paper helps dyslexic kids more than white paper does. You know what I mean? Like, that's powerful. That's powerful.
Yep. Who'd have thunk it, right?
Who'd have thunk? Who'd have thunk as moms we were totally capable of teaching our kids? Well, here we are. Right. Who'd have thunk that we can still use our brains in our 40s and go, I can figure this out. So power, there's power there. What last advice would you give to new homeschooling moms, moms thinking about homeschooling? What would you say?
I think the first thing I would like to say is do it. Because I don't think that there are two better words. Just do it. And I think that you will see that your kids will blossom. It is stressful, and it is, it can be daunting because it is a whole new world. You were the mom who, was making dinners and breakfasts and packing lunches and going to the grocery store and doing whatever. I never got to do things like yoga or book clubs or any of that kind of stuff because I have 3 special needs kids. But when I had 4 neurotypical kiddos that were going to school, I had the typical life. I was working and making lunches and coming home and putting together dinners. And now I do something so drastically different because God blessed me with 3 amazing kids. And I know back when Bryn was born, I would say, man, I don't know what he was thinking when he gave me Bryn, because I seriously did not know how to handle a kiddo like her. But she was a huge blessing to us. And she taught my kids unconditional love, something that most kids just don't understand. And I think that also helped my kids in school because they saw kids in the SPED program and they said, wow, Mom, I met this kid today, and he's cool and he has Down syndrome and, whatever. And it's like, yeah, they're just like you, aren't they? They're just different, but they're just like you. And my kids totally get that. Even today, when they meet somebody anywhere, they see a special needs kiddo and they're like, oh, he melts my heart, or he's so cute, or, or they get past the yelling or whatever. And it's like, so having 3 special needs kiddos has taught my kids so many lessons, but it's also taught me that I'm bigger than I thought I was. I'm stronger than I thought I was. I have become not just a mom, but now I'm a teacher, and I have taught my kids things that I didn't think school would ever teach them because I was afraid that they'd be left in a corner. And unfortunately, in some particular situations, that's literally what happens is your kiddo gets left in a corner. And I don't want that. I don't want that for anybody's kid. I don't want it for my kid. I don't want it for your kids. I want everybody's kiddos to blossom, and they're only going to blossom when you give them the nutrients that they need basically to succeed. And so I would say, as a mom who didn't homeschool and who worked full time and was, just taking care of the house and everything, if you're given an opportunity to take care of your kids and to make your kids feel more secure and to be able to teach them at their pace, just do it. It's the best thing you could possibly do for your kids.
I love that. Pattie, thank you so much for taking the time today to share your life and your story and your heart and your children with us.
Of course.
Y'all, you can do hard things. You are doing so much better than you think you are, mamas and papas. You got this. Pattie, thank you again for coming.
Of course.
We'll talk next week. If you enjoyed this today, please like and subscribe. You could also join our private Facebook group at School to Homeschool or sign up for our newsletter at www.schooltohomeschool. Have a great day.